Hello, this is Rising Feathers, and today I'm going to be using Pokemon Yellow to do my first ever Nuzlocke. I picked Yellow because it was my first ever Pokemon game, so it seemed fitting. So very quickly, for those who don't know, Nuzlocke are a type of Pokemon challenge that are meant to more heavily restrict your Pokemon party, as well as the strategy that goes into battling. Nuzlocke can come in a few flavors, but generally they all have 3 rules in common. Number 1, if a Pokemon faints for any reason, it is permanent. As soon as possible, a fainted Pokemon must be released or be put forever into the PC. Number 2, your only chance to catch a new Pokemon is your first encounter in an area. If the Pokemon on that first encounter faints, runs away, or you run away, you can no longer attempt to catch a Pokemon from that area. Whether static encounters such as gift Pokemon, in-game trades, legendary Pokemon, etc. count in this rule seems to depend on preference. For this run, static encounters do count as that area's encounter. I will also be enacting the same species clause. This means for the sake of having variety in your party, you cannot catch a Pokemon that you already have or is from the same evolutionary line as a Pokemon that you already have. For example, if I have a Spearow, I cannot in a different area catch a Fearow or another Spearow. In those instances, you are allowed additional encounters until you find something new. And lastly, Rule 3. You must nickname all your Pokemon in order to have a greater attachment to them. You might have heard of Nuzlockes that have item limitations, level caps on your Pokemon, or other rules, but these are generally a part of what are called hardcore Nuzlockes, which I will not be doing today. As someone who has never put more strategy into a game of Pokemon than the base game needs, i.e. not much, I'm a little worried about losing Pokemon due to silly mistakes. Let me know in the comments how many Pokemon you expect me to lose during this. And with that out of the way, let's break it out. As usual, Professor Oak forces us to take a Pikachu, and at Rune's suggestion, we name it Orange Juice. We have our first rival fight, and I actually almost lose. Losing would have resulted in me starting a new game, but thankfully I had remembered to take the potion out of my PC beforehand, securing the victory. Before entering the Viridian Forest, I take the time to train all the new friends I catch along the way. Grits the Rattata from Route 1, Pop-Tart the male Nidoran for making a detour to Route 22, and Toast the Pidgey from Route 2. Our hopes for the Pewter City Gym lie with this encounter. A Butterfree with Confusion will make fighting Brock a hell of a lot easier. Since we already have a Pidgey, catching a Caterpie or a Metapod is my only option in the forest anyway, but if I knock it out by accident, I'll need to come up with a new plan. Thankfully that doesn't happen, and we are able to add Coffee to the team. Fortunately, the Caterpie line level up quickly, so we have our Confusion Butterfree in no time. Time to challenge Brock. First is his Geodude, and we get hit by a few tackles. I was hoping for more defense curls, but no dice. Lastly is his Onyx, and I took a big risk by not switching out Coffee or switching to a non-damaging move once he used Bide. But the risk paid off and I was able to knock him out before he was able to do damage, winning me my first badge. By now, Coffee was quite ahead in levels, so I used the trainers between Pewter City and Mount Moon to catch up the others. I also catch a Spearow in the grass and name it Oatmeal. However, since I already have Toast, I don't really spend time leveling it up. I had trouble from this one last who had a Jigglypuff. It was a bit higher in level, which is common from trainers with a single Pokemon, but the issue was that I kept using Sing, and would sing every time I switched. Gen 1 and its cheating ways could become a big issue later on. I could have prayed to Arceus forever, but that wasn't going to change our Mount Moon encounter from being a Zubat. Jan was the first to be put into the PC as a backup. There was a last with the Clefairy, and it was a similar situation to the Jigglypuff from earlier. I really hope this is the last of this for a while. I pick up the Dome Fossil, but which one I take really doesn't matter since I don't plan on reviving it. Coffee was the MVP during the scripted Jesse and James fight. Mount Moon is shorter than I remember, so this fight kinda caught me off guard. Before reaching Cerulean City, I catch a Mankey and name it Bacon. Oatmeal heads for the PC once I reach the Pokemon Center. At this point, nothing prevents me from taking on Misty, but I have a few things I want to do before that. Next is the rival fight at the base of Nugget Bridge, but I underestimate the levels of his Pokemon. Toast ended up having a standoff with a Spearow, which I could have played better by switching out Toast as the attack and defense drops piled up, but for whatever reason I tried to brute force it and it cost me. Spearow had a crit Fury attack, which combined with my defense being lowered was more than enough to take out Toast from full health. My first casualty of the run. I swapped a Coffee who took out the rest of his Pokemon and gave us the win. That was not at all how I was hoping that would go. Even with the level gap, things could have gone a lot better if I had been smarter while battling. As a reminder, I can use items in battle, but I'm finding it hard to switch into a more strategic mindset. I swapped Oatmeal back in and proceeded to grab my Pokemon in the same grass I found Bacon in. But the trainers on Nugget Bridge weren't as strong as my rivals, so I didn't need to grind much. While fighting the trainers, Pop-Tart evolved into Nidorino, and since I have no plans in placing my faith in Horndrill, I opted to evolve him into a Nidoking immediately using a Moonstone I had found back in Mount Moon. Rather than take to the grass on the west side, I went north of the bridge and talked to the NPC who gives you Charmander instead. I named him Pancake, and once again Oatmeal was back in the box. Pancake evolved into Charmeleon soon after from battling and training. After defeating all the trainers in the area, I made sure to get the SSN ticket from Bill. I tried out Orange Juice on Misty's junior trainer, but it didn't fill me with confidence. Pikachus in general have terrible defense and HP, which has been apparent all along, but I'm nervous that it will be the death of it someday. Orange Juice's win gives it enough affection toward me to convince the lady next to the Pokemon Center to give me the Bulbasaur she had been taken care of. I name it French Toast, and it replaces Grits the Rattata. Like Pancake, I prioritize evolving French Toast into an Ivysaur, especially now with the fear of Misty Starmie looming on the horizon. Procrastinating, I head to Route 5 where my options are an Abra or a Jigglypuff. I run into a Jigglypuff at level 5, but somehow 5 Pokeballs plus it being asleep was not enough to catch it, so with no more Pokeballs in my bag, I have to give it up as a loss. Annoyed, I grind a bit more. I decide to go for Misty before the SSN, so let's see how it goes. The battle starts strong with Orange Juice taking out the Staryu with 1 crit Thundershock. So far so good. Starmie is faster than Orange Juice and it takes big damage from a water gun. Thundershock, despite being super effective, only does a small bit of damage. I'm not sure what my plan was here, but I don't heal or switch out Orange Juice. What I did do was somehow completely forget about Starmie's even stronger Bubble Beam, resulting in the death of our starter. I had just said the low base stats were going to be an issue, but I didn't think it would be this soon. French Toast goes in and makes quick work of Starmie, who is now just using Harden and Tackle. In hindsight, I should have switched to French Toast as soon as I saw how much damage Starmie's water gun had done, but once again my brute forcing habits shine bright. I now have the Cascade badge, but it's a bittersweet victory. It just hits different when it's your starter, especially this one who was able to make a cry of despair upon entering the PC. Grits replaces Orange Juice and I head to Route 6 where I get another chance to catch a Jigglypuff, which goes a lot better. I name him Yogurt. Once I get the bike, I grind until everyone is around level 20 and head into the SSN. None of the trainers give me trouble, but Grits does evolve into Eradicate, a pretty appropriate place for it to do so actually. Thankfully, my rival fight was a lot easier this time. Odd how having higher leveled Pokemon would do that. I should use this strategy more often. After using my magic back rubs on an old man, I'm giving my first HM Cut. Out of all of the Pokemon in my party, only French Toast and Pancake are able to learn it, so I give it to Pancake. I could use an HM Grunt, but Cut comes up often enough that it's just easier to keep it on me. Considering Surge's Raichu is level 28, I've got some grinding to do. A Diglett would be pretty helpful to have in general, but unfortunately Grits Might was too much for the local wildlife, so no Diglett for me. I also poked into Route 11, where I caught a Drowsy that I named Tea. As much as I love coffee and all it's done for the team up to this point, it just has too many weaknesses to be safe to use as I get further along, so Tea took its spot. After that, I went to train back in Diglett's cave, but tragedy struck. A Rogue Duck trio wouldn't let me escape and use Dig. My choices were to either hope I could run away this time, or to swap into another Pokemon to take the damage. Considering Bacon's time on the team was coming to a close anyway, he was voluntold to make a sacrifice for the greater good. Fortunately, we were able to escape after Bacon fainted, which is great, because I wasn't sure what I would have done if I was still trapped in that battle. With French Toast at level 28 and Pop-Tart as my backup at level 26, I took on Surge. My first move is to use Poison Powder. A few turns of extra chip damage could make all the difference. As expected, Raichu is faster than us, but what's scary is how much damage a crit Thunderbolt does, despite our resistance to it. I use a potion, but I'm on the back foot against other Thunderbolts. I start using Vine Whip for damage, but it doesn't do much. I end up needing to use a Super Potion to stay in the fight. Fortunately, Surge wastes a couple of turns using X Speed and Growl. A critical Vine Whip cuts through, leaving Raichu with a sliver. Poison can finish it off, so now it's a matter of whether French Toast survives this last attack. A Mega Kick takes us almost into the red. Sure enough, the damage from the poison takes out the last of Raichu's health, winning us the Thunder Badge. Considering how Misty had gone, I couldn't have asked for much better. I show my badge offers to Jenny, and she gives me a delinquent Squirtle in her admiration. I name him Waffle to complete the trifecta. By now, my party's leveling has gotten very lopsided, so I evolve Waffle into Wartortle, grind a lot, and get Flash for Rock Tunnel, which I give to Yogurt to give her a one-time purpose. At around level 25, Rock Tunnel doesn't present much of a challenge. I emerge with a Geodude named Muffin, and with Tea evolved into a Hypno. Once in Lavender Town, I decided to take on the rival fight. It went pretty smoothly with no issues. In general, it seems that my team is coming to its own, and I hope the smooth sailing continues. After failing to catch an Abra on Route 7, I enter Celadon City with a bit of a to-do list. First, I get the gift Eevee from the Celadon Mansion. I name him Bagel and do a dice roll to determine what I would evolve him into should I choose to do so. I'm not sure if that's a normal rule for Nuzlocke, but I've seen people roll for starters before, so I figured this is a similar type of situation and it fits into a challenge like this, where you have little say in what Pokemon you can obtain. I was hoping for a Jolteon, but unfortunately I got a Flareon, which I believe has the worst stats of the 3 evolutions. I bought a Firestone, but deposited Bagel into the box without evolving him. While in the department store, I buy a fresh water and then give it to the nearby guard. Apparently they would rather swap spit with every other guard on the same bottle of water than complain to their union that they have to sit in a hot box all day with no water available. With Tea and Pancake being around level 30, I figure now is a good time to take on Erica. First is Tangela, and I had Tea out first. Neither Confusion nor Hepa was doing impressive damage, so I end up switching to Pancake. Tangela wastes my time by using Bind, but that doesn't change what Ember does to a grass Pokemon. Next is Weepinbell, whose acid actually gets us into the red before it goes down to more embers. I bring Tea back out to face her last Pokemon Gloom, where Confusion now does super effective damage. By the way, anyone know why Gloom's sprite is bright red like that? It's weird. But despite my insults, Erica forks over the rainbow badge. Next is the Celadon Game Corner. Jesse and James decide to challenge us for the second time, but Pop-Tart just mows them down. You might be wondering why I haven't used any TMs on Pop-Tart yet, since that's one of his primary appeals. TMs didn't become reusable until Gen 5, meaning that if I teach Pop-Tart my best TMs and he gets knocked out, those TMs are gone for good. My plan is to wait until the endgame before I use them. At least for now, he still seems to not be doing too bad for himself. But in order to get the Self Scope, I need to get through this first Giovanni fight. Neither his Onyx or his Rhyhorn are much of a match for Waffle, so those were pretty free. I switched to T to go against Persian. Confusion does good damage, but 3 bites and a failed Hypnosis caused me to use a Super Potion, an action which is immediately undone from a flinching bite and a crit payday. But finally get a chance to attack, and this time I'm the one who crits, giving me the win. Silph Scope in hand, I go back to Lavender Town, where T continues to show how essential he has become by taking on the tower almost single-handedly, leaving a trail of exercise channelers in his wake. In a further show of dominance towards the spirits of hell, I catch a Ghastly and name him Hash Browns. At the top of the tower, we encounter Jesse and James for the 3rd time, but this time their Coffin and Ekans have evolved. I was really worried that Weezing would cheat and somehow have self-destruct or explosion, but either he doesn't or he just has a great sense of self-preservation. Regardless, I have Pop-Tart take them out again, and I rescue Mr. Fuji, who rewards me with the Pokéflute. The Pokéflute gives me 2 opportunities to catch a Snorlax. I tried for the one on Route 16, but he wasn't wanting to stay in a Great Ball, and with his Special Rising, I was getting concerned. True, Snorlax doesn't know Hyper Beam yet, but at the time I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to risk having party members faint to an already unlikely catch, so I decided to knock him out. Disappointing, but we'll have another chance later. More successfully, on the way to Fuchsia, I catch a Ponyta named Cereal on Cycling Road, and a Doduo I name Omelette on Route 18. He'll actually be taking Kritz's place in the party. I decide to hang out there a while until Pancake, French Toast, and Waffle evolve for their final time. Once in Fuchsia, I talk to the fisherman for the Good Rod. At the moment, I don't have much in the way of a backup should Waffle get taken out, so I use it in his backyard to catch Cream of Wheat the Goldeen and Biscuits and Gravy the Poliwag after entering the Safari Zone. After getting Serpent Strength, I go right for Koga. As you could have guessed, T shredded through everything he had. It also gives me a strategy for Sabrina later on, but I'll get to that in a bit. Regardless, we now have 5 badges. Next we head to Saffron City by going the way that takes us through Vermilion City, so that we can challenge the trainers along the way. I catch an Oddish on Route 15 named Avocado Toast, and Doduo evolves into Dodrio shortly after. I've never had one in my party before, but I'm becoming a fan, especially now that it knows Drill Peck. I also catch Versant the Venonat on Route 14 before running into that other Snorlax on Route 12. Thankfully, this one is kind enough to let itself be caught in one Ultra Ball. Datish heads for the PC, but it's good to have it on reserve in case things go wrong. Saffron City actually has a bit of a to-do list. First, I head to the Fighting Dojo where you're gifted your choice of a Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan as your reward for winning. Do a dice roll for it, and it lands on Hitmonchan, my preferred favorite as a kid. I christened him Quiche and proceed to start clearing out Silphco. At this point I realize I've made a mistake. You may remember back in the rules I said that for at least this Nuzlocke, static encounters do count as your one encounter for that area. Saffron City itself contains 2. The fighting Pokemon you choose at the dojo, and a Lapras and Silphco. The question becomes, do these buildings count as being in the same area as Saffron City? Back in Fuchsia, I thought it was pretty obvious to consider the Safari Zone to be its own area, but I find this to be not as clear. In the end I decided it's better to be safe than sorry, so Lapras will simply be moved to the dead box despite not having fainted. If I had thought of this earlier, I would have gotten Lapras first, but it is what it is. Time for the next rival fight. First is his Sand Slash against Omelette. We trade Drill Pecks and Poison Stains, except my attacks get results. He sends out his Cloyster, to which I send out Pop-Tart and almost get knocked out to a crit Aurora Beam. For some reason I keep thinking Nidokings and Queens are normal and not ground. I'd better learn that before Lorelei. I switched to T and finished it with a confusion. I swapped to French Toast to face his Magneton. While Grass does resist electric attacks, Grass itself only does neutral damage to electric. That combined with the fact that French Toast has fallen behind in levels compared to the rest of my team, results in poor performing Vine Whips. Back to T, who takes care of it in a couple of attacks. Next is Kadabra, and T stays in the fight and takes it out with one headbutt. His last Pokemon is Flareon, and I one-shot it with a crit Surf from Waffle. With your rival gone, this is where you get Lapras. It probably would have been kinder just to leave her there, but I pick her up anyway and name her Strudel. But again, as soon as I have the chance, Strudel is heading for the dead box. You hate to see it. As I get closer to Giovanni, Jesse and James show up for one last stand against me. The fight is far from exciting. Alma deals with Weezing and Arbok fairly easily, and even French Toast is able to get in there and knock out their Meowth. Haven't they figured out that I don't have a Pikachu anymore by now? With that interruption handled, let's have another rematch, this time with a Crime Lord, except that this turns out to be the easiest scripted fight in Silph.Co. T just one-shots his entire team with Psychic. I guess that's not really surprising, but it's still pretty funny to see. With the thugs gone from the city, I finally have access to Sabrina's gym, and now I'll explain what I meant by Koga giving me a good idea earlier. Actually, you already saw a sneak peek in the rival fight we just had. As a reminder, Psychic Pokemon in Gen 1 were very unbalanced in that they only had Bug-type as a weakness, but even worse is that Twin Needle is the only offensive Bug-type move in Gen 1, which only Beedrill can learn. Even if that was the route I wanted to go down, Beedrill isn't even available to me in this game. I know, pointing out the flaws in Gen 1 is beating a dead horse in 2021, but what were they thinking? Anyway, the strat. If I can't use super effective damage, I'll go for damage resistance instead. Once again, my hopes rest on T. Being Psychic and having Special as his highest base stat, he should be able to eat any Psychic moves from her Pokemon. But that's not all. While the Alakazam line is praised for its special and speed, that's really all it has going for it. Defense is actually its lowest stat, with HP not being much better. Meaning, we headbutt to victory. And on her first two Pokemon, this works pretty well. Abra is a one-shot, and Kadabra is a two-shot. However, Alakazam is where the real fight is. In a rare display of smart AI, Sabrina tells him to use Reflect, and then uses an X defense. So much for a clean sweep. We then start trading Psychic moves, and I actually need to heal up as T's health drops below half. He uses Recover, and I use a successful Hypnosis, only for him to wake up immediately and use another Recover. Headbutt is still doing nerf damage, so all I can do is use Psychic for damage and try to put him to sleep again. He resists it at first, but then wastes a couple of turns trying to reflect. This gives T the chance to put him to sleep. The sleep lasts for a few more turns this time, and Alakazam is almost in the red by the time he wakes up, but as you can expect, he uses Recover again. In response, we put him to sleep for the third time, but at this point I'm getting nervous about running out of Psychics, so I start using Confusion instead, and actually confuse him. By the time Alakazam gets the chance to attack, he's in the red, and I fully expect him to recover again, but the Confusion takes effect, giving us the chance to finally get in the winning blow. That was most certainly the longest fight we've had in a while. If I had confused Alakazam sooner, this might have gone a bit smoother. 2 batches to go. Okay, let's fly to Pallet Town and surf to Cinnabar. Wait. Seems I never picked up Fly. Hold on a sec. So anyway, after catching a tentacle named Sausage Link while in the water, I drop off the old Amber at the lab on Cinnabar Island and head to the Pokemon Mansion. There's plenty of items on the ground, including the gym key we need to face Blaine. But as I'm picking all of this up, I can no longer put off dealing with my item inventory. Gen 1 doesn't separate your items, so you only have a small amount of items you can carry around at once. I've been using the PC to store TMs and other items, but it was at this point that my PC was full as well. Stupid key items like the SSN ticket that I'll never use again are eating up precious space, but I'm not allowed to throw them away. All I can do is drop or sell things like antidotes and use up any vitamins. Organizing my items actually proves to be a bigger challenge than Blaine, but it wasn't as easy as I expected. Of course I have Waffle in front, and he takes care of Ninetales in one surf. I try the same thing with Rapidash, but it gets off 2 flinching stomps and I heal. Good thing too, because once I'm released from Fire Spin, Rapidash gets in a crit takedown. I mean, I can't be surprised that a horse is faster than a turtle, but it's still pretty annoying. Once Waffle finally gets to use Surf, Rapidash becomes past tense. Blaine's last Pokemon is Arcanine, and I use the first turn to heal. Flamethrower doesn't do much damage, but Surf isn't a one and done either. Arcanine uses Takedown and almost gets us into the red with a crit. The level difference definitely isn't helping, but a second Surf wins us the fight and the Volcano badge. I do some grinding and then head to Viridian City. Being that it's the last gym match as well as our third fight against Giovanni, I wish I could say it was tense or at least interesting, but in reality not so much. Waffle one-shots his entire team with Surf, with the exception being Persian, who needs 2. Giovanni takes losing to a Nuzlocke trainer pretty hard, so hard in fact that we give him flashbacks to the good old days, and he dissolves his entire crime organization with no warning. I feel we don't get enough credit in the game for this. So that's 8 badges and the endgame approaches. On the way to Victory Road, we go against our rival for the second to last time. This fight is of course accessible earlier if you so choose, but I'd rather have the experience now. T takes out Sandslash and wins Psychic and Execute in 2. But Sunspore leaves us paralyzed, so I switch to French Toast, who knocks out Cloyster in 1 Razor Leaf and Magneton in 2. I see a pattern here. Kadabra's out next and Pancake takes care of it with 1 Slash. His last Pokemon is Flareon and I just continue to use Slash for the win. The next time we see this guy, he'll be the champion. If we make it that far. After being grilled by a bunch of Rent-A-Cops and catching a Nidorino named Parfait, we proceed through Victory Row without too much trouble. I had the option of catching an Onyx, but I don't see a scenario where one could help us at this point, so I don't bother. Once at the Indigo Plateau, I assess my team. My Pokemon are only around level 50 by this point, not enough that I feel safe taking on the Elite Four. With one final grind remaining, I finally break into my TM Bolt and give Nidoking Earthquake and Thunderbolt. I also give Pancake Dig and Waffle Ice Beam. Victory Road has the highest level Pokemon we can access, so I start to grind. Things go well at first until I make my biggest mistake yet. Pop-Tart is against the Geodude, who decided to use Self-Destruct and crit, taking out Pop-Tart. It exploded? Did it just blow up? No! No! I should have come here. I should have just went back to the mansion. I am crushed. Not only have I lost my Nidoking, but I've also lost access to Earthquake and Thunderbolt. They were going to be key attacks in my strategy. This is exactly why I held off teaching him moves, and I blew it anyway. I didn't think I would lose a Pokemon to grinding this late in the game. Not gonna lie, I'm frazzled. I looked at my PC for inspiration, and my first thought is to evolve my recently caught Nidorina and see if I can make a different flavored Pop-Tart. My only real electric option is to get Thunder from the power plant, but before I go, I double check my PC before committing to using Parfait and come across Danish, the Snorlax from earlier. New plan. Danish's only weakness is fighting Pokemon, but we have Bruno covered anyway with T, so that's a non-issue. I teach him Psychic, since that's almost always a handy attack to have, and Thunder. Special is not his, well, specialty, but the moves are powerful and his HP will be high enough to tank at least a couple of hits of almost anything I need to worry about. The risky part of this is Thunder. It's more powerful than Thunderbolt, but less accurate, only 70%. And as Pokemon veterans will tell you, any attack with less than 100% accuracy is basically a coin flip. I'll need to buy some X accuracies and rely on that massive HP to be able to use them. This is mainly for Lorelei, the hardest type-wise for me to go against. I feel this is a good plan B. In hindsight, this probably should have been my plan A. When I caught Danish, I probably should have switched out Pop-Tart from the beginning. Funny how these things work out. By the way, I could have caught Zapdos while in the power plant, but I don't want to use legendaries if I can help it. So as much as I won't be using it, I instead catch a Voltorb, which I named Canadian Bacon, my final capture of the run. After training the team to around level 60 with no incident, I steel myself for the final onslaught. If I wipe here, I have 2 choices. I can either retrain a whole new team from the box with even less TMs to work with, or I can start the game over again and make better decisions. I'm honestly not sure what I would do should it come to that. Starting over would probably be the play, but I'm honestly so sick of Kanto by this point. Not because I don't like it, but before this run I had last year done a Fire Red randomizer and before that my playthrough of Let's Go Eevee. I want to move on to different scenery. Let's see if I can make that happen. Lorelei is first, and I'm happy to say that Danish really did me a solid here. I was able to set up a 1x accuracy on the first turn and he hit all Thunders we ended up using. Dugong took the longest to get through, but that was only because he used Rest. Cloyster is next but gets one shot, as does Slowbro, so it's Jinx's turn. A Thunder only takes out about half its health, and due to an Ice Punch, Danish is down to about the same. I heal. And Jinx starts using Thrash. Another Thunder leaves him with only a smidge of health left, and I finish it with a Body Slam. Though I take time to heal from Jinx's Thrashes. Last is Lapras, who goes down in 2 Thunders. I definitely breathe a big sigh of relief that this is over, and feel so happy that I decided to rely on Danish. Next is Bruno, but they don't stand a chance against T. He one-shots his entire team, and we move on. There is Agatha, and I once again use T. We land one-shots on everyone until her second Gengar, who outspeeds me with Hypnosis. I wake T up before Gengar can use Dream Eater, only to get confused by Confuse Ray. After I spend a few turns making sure T stays awake and healthy, Agatha starts to make some bizarre choices. She wastes turns using Confuse Right, despite T still being confused, and Dream Eater, even though T was now awake. This gave me enough time to power through the confusion and take out the Gengar and 2 Psychics. Last of the Elite Four is Lance. On his Gyarados, I try using Waffle's Ice Beam, but despite being super effective, it doesn't do enough damage. I only have 10 shots, so I can't waste them all here. I swap to French Toast. One Razor Leaf takes him to just above the red, but before I can use another, Gyarados hits me with a critical Hyper Beam, knocking him out. I'm curious as to whether he would have survived on standard damage, but regardless, he will be missed. The fact that I won't have the chance to end on a full team is a bit of a bummer. Because of Hyper Beam Recharge, I get a free switch into Danish and finish off the Gyarados with a Psychic. For his first Dragonair, I switch back to Waffle and shoot an Ice Beam. He survives with what must be 1 hit point, but he's frozen. Lance uses a Hyper Potion and I use another Ice Beam, this time getting a crit. An eye for an eye, as it were. His second Dragonite gets one shot and so does his Aerodactyl, though with a Surf. Last is the Dragonite and he too gets the 1 Beam Satchel. The Elite Four is over, but we know they're still the champion and I'm pretty stressed by this point. This becomes pretty obvious from the first fight when it's Danish versus Sandslash. Rather than maybe switching to Waffle and using Surf, I just brute force with Psychic. Due to taking some damage and getting poisoned, I need to heal. Not the best start. Next is T versus Alakazam and it's time for the old tried and true headbutt strategy. 2 hits later and he's done. I used Pancake against Executor and he's gone in 2 flamethrowers. However, Magneton is next, and as usual against electric Pokemon, I don't have the best options. I take a risk and keep in Pancake and give Dig a try. A crit would have done it, but instead he lives with just a tiny bit of health left. Magneton retaliates with a Thunderbolt and it's the same result. Super effective, but not quite enough. I heal rather than switch, thinking he might heal, but he doesn't, and Pancake barely escapes death again. This time I do switch to Danish and give him a headbutt. Cloyster comes out next, and this is where I really start unraveling. I swap to Waffle and use Ice Beam, thinking that it would be super effective. And when it's not, I heal the damage from Spike Cannon, only to be hit with another Spike Cannon. What a mess. I managed to collect myself and bring out Danish. Knowing to take chances, I use an X accuracy, but then I frustratingly get trapped by a clamp and a 5-hit Spike Cannon. Once released, I take him out in 1 Thunder, is what I would have said, but he lived with what was probably 1 HP. I finished it with a Psychic, but that was my last Thunder. Fortunately, Flareon is his last Pokemon, and we drone it in 2 Surfs from Waffle, becoming the champion. It's over. It's finally over. I have found the ultimate breakfast of champions. Danish the Snorlax, Pancake the Charizard, Olive the Dodrio even though we didn't use him once during the Elite Four champion, Waffle the Blastoise, T the Hypno, and an honorable mention to French Toast the Venusaur. But as we celebrate our triumph, let's not forget those who didn't make it. Toast the Pidgey, who we lost to the rival Spearow at the base of Nugget Bridge. Orange Juice the Pikachu, who was overcome by Misty Starmie. Bacon the Mankey, who was the ultimate sacrifice against a Dugtrio in Diglett's cave in order to give us the chance to escape. Strudel the Lapras, who was DOA due to me picking up another Pokemon before her. Pop-Tart the Nidoking, who was taken out by a wild Geodude's self-destruct on Victory Road. And lastly, of course, French Toast the Venusaur, who almost made it to the very end but was stricken down by a Hyper Beam from Lance's Gyarados. Rest easy, my friends. Your sacrifices were not in vain. Other than Streusel, you were all critical to our ultimate victory. This Nuzlocke of Pokemon Yellow is a success. Thank you all for watching me stumble through my first Nuzlocke. My plan is to do some sort of Nuzlocke for every gen. All the footage you've seen here actually came from me streaming the playthrough on Twitch. Have a sneak peek as to what that was like. So you won! Congratulations! You're the new Pokemon League champion. You've grown up so much that you first left with Pikachu. Oh. Raiden, you have come of age! I've already started a run on Crystal where the rules are stricter than before, so if you'd like to join me for that and other future runs, there's a link down below. But as far as this video goes, this is the part where I'm supposed to ask you to use your finger to tap your phone or click your mouse on the subscribe button. But look at me. I'm a few videos in and I'm on track to reach 100 subs by 2030. With that kind of gross excess, I don't really feel a call to action is necessary, so take that free will and let your heart guide you. See you later!